Hey guys, doing a quick little video here to talk about uh, side events that I won at Arlington Regionals. I played Reiju. I didn't do too hot in the first day, but in the second day I was like, sure, I'll do a side event. Why not? And I borrowed my friend's Moria deck instead of playing Reiju. And I made like a little adjustment to it. And this is the list. And I just wanted to give like a brief overview of the list slash tournament report. It was um It was 6 rounds, 64 people, and the prize for first place was a promotional Captain Kid promo of the Purple 7 drop one, and like 6 event packs as well. And my pulls were pretty good. It was like 3 Yamatos and a Zoro, and a Moana Monet. So like pretty good value out of 6 event packs on top of the $700, $600 kid. It was just awesome. It was a quite a emotional ride because I was like, sure, I'll play. Why not? And it was my first event with Moria, which is probably going to be my main deck next set. But at the time, I had like basically no experience with Moria, so I played like a practice game and a half with one of my locals who was there at the tournament as well, and then went right into the tournament. And that was like all the practice I had. But thankfully, I drew very well, and I had a couple moments where like I got really lucky. And overall, I think I played the deck pretty well. And then ended up going 6-0, and it was sick. So my first game was against Katakuri. He chose to go first, I believe. I know he went first. I don't know if he chose it or if I chose second. Either way, he went first with Katakuri, and his triggers weren't all that great throughout the game. He played a 7 mom at one point, and I gave him the life just because he had seen so few triggers up to that point. I was like, yeah, I'll give him another life, even if it's a trigger. He hasn't hit me so far, so like it'll be fine. And it was super close, and it came down to me having two 2Ks in hand and 2 blockers to stop 3 of his attacks on his lethal turn. And that let me live with 0 life to go for game next turn. Super down to the wire. The second game was against Red Green Luffy, of all things, and he was playing the film package with like Luffy, Brook, and then like Nami and Usopp. I don't think I saw an Uta blocker, but I'm pretty sure he had Nami and Usopp in there. And Zoro, not Zoro, Luffy and Brook to do the combo of 3 characters at once. And the other half of the deck was supernovas. So like 5 cost green blocker law and 3 cost rush red Zoro, stuff like that. Just supernovas to use with red green Luffy's ability. And it was honestly really cool. The deck itself, it is red green Luffy, so it wasn't all that special. Like, I don't know, it was nothing to write home about in terms of like competitive viability. But in terms of like watching the gameplay happen, it was so cool because it was all these cards that like I had never seen used in this context before. And like, you know, kudos to him for coming up with a unique deck. It was really cool. Um, yeah, he unfortunately for him he basically saw barely any film cards the whole game. He saw Nami and Usopp, but those aren't like the combo pieces. Those are just the low end. He didn't see the Luffy or the Brook for almost the whole game. I think he saw Brook once and didn't see Film Luffy. Period. Overall, I was just able to like control the board really well since he wasn't able to flood. So I just had like Great Eruption, Absalom, stuff like that when I needed it. And since I could apply like constant pressure, eventually I just ran through all of his cards in hand. The third game was against Sakazuki, and I chose to go second, of course, to throw off his curve. And overall, it was a pretty close game. I'm pretty sure he had 3 Great Eruptions in his life and triggered all 3 of them to make me discard a card 3 times, which I don't think was the correct play at all because, in Moria, like half your cards don't have counter. Like Moria, not half, but a good chunk. Moria, Kuzan, Lucci, and then both of your events that you play 4 of. All of these cards have no counter. So every time he was using Great Eruption's trigger to make me discard a card, I was just discarding something that had no counter anyway. So it didn't really hurt me that much because like when I have a fat like 7 or 8 card hand, I'm not going to be able to cast every card. So I'm going to use the ones I don't cast to counter. Well, if I'm not going to cast it and it has no counter, it's just a dead card. So discarding it for Great Eruption, it was kind of a dead card anyway. So like he would have been better off holding the Great Eruption to get the -2 cost effect later. But he triggered all 3 of his Great Eruptions in life to make me discard 3, and it just didn't hurt me that much because I just had a no counter card to discard each time. Yeah, he was able to, or sorry, I was able to play the first Moria, and then he played a second one on his 9 Dawn turn. And then on my 10 Dawn turn, what did I do on my 10 Dawn turn? I think I had another Borsalina or another Moria, but I didn't even need it because he was at 0 life. So I made a Great Eruption Absalom play to KO his Rebecca, and then I went. He had 0 life and 1 blocker and like 2 or 3 cards in hand. 1 blocker plus the Rebecca. It was like a Sabo and a Rebecca. So I Great Eruption Absalom the Rebecca, so he just has a Sabo and a couple cards in hand with 0 life, and I was able to just dump all the rest of my Dawn on a Moria leader and a Moria character to go like 10 and 11 at life. And he could block one with Sabo, of course, but then the other was guaranteed to go through because I think he only had 3 cards in hand. So I ended up having I had the first Moria, he had the second, and I had the third in hand, but I didn't even need to play it because I just had game that turn anyway. And then the fourth game was against Reiju. It went pretty well in my favor because even though he went second, which is ideal for Reiju because they get to see an extra card and dig for their stage sooner. He had a turn one 4 cost Reiju play, so like play the 2 cost Reiju, Dawn minus down to 1 Dawn, and then 4 cost Reiju, draw 3 cards. That was his turn one play, but unfortunately for him, he didn't see his stage until he was at like 9 or 10 Dawn. Um, so he was just having very awkward hands to work with the whole game, and I'm pretty sure he only played 1 Reiju 4 cost, 1 Niji 6 cost or 5 cost, and 1 Ichiji 7 cost the whole game. Just one of each was all he was ever able to get on the board. And I was specifically not KOing them so that he could not reuse their on play effects. So I just kind of like quote quote starved him of his character effects and swung at life instead. Um, since I figured he had more of the little ones, I don't want him to get value out of those. I wanted those to be basically dead cards in hand that he could only 1 key counter with. And then once his hand was empty, after I had swung at life a bunch, and he was like taking life and countering out. Once his hand was empty, then I started going for his board like later in the game, around 9 or 10 Dawn. Um, yeah, and I think all he had like one of each at one point. I KO'd the Niji by attacking it, and I hit the Ichiji with an Ice Age Absalom. Uh, and he drew Judge on his next turn, but at that point, his hand was so low, he couldn't even activate it. And even if he did, I had game anyway, because I think I had like 4 swings, and he had like 1 life. But it was sad, because he had Judge, but only 1 card in hand besides it, so he couldn't even use the Judge effect. It was pretty rough. And then the fifth game was a Moria mirror match, and we went back and forth clearing each other's boards. I'm pretty sure I went first this game because I remember doing a Great Eruption plus 8 cost Moria play 2 turns back to back. So just Ice Age Moria, or sorry, Great Eruption Moria, Great Eruption Moria, 2 turns in a row, which is just like, what are you gonna do? You know, it's just crazy. He only saw 1 Moria as well, and he played it on his 10 Dawn turn. Um, no, he played on his 8 Dawn turn. So he went 8 cost Moria on 8 Dawn, but then on his 10 Dawn turn, he didn't have another Moria to follow it up, whereas I had played 2 Morias. So his 10 Dawn turn was pretty weak, and that's what like let me push ahead to take the win, was him not having the second Moria when I did. And then the final round was against Sakazuki again, and it just went very well for me. He won the die roll and went first, which is like what I wanted to happen anyway, because I want to go second, so Sakazuki can't go second. But he gave me second, so it was like cool. I basically won the die roll, you know. And throughout the entire game, the only removal he drew was 1 copy of Houndblades. The whole game, no Lucci's, no Amas, no Borsalinos, nothing. Just 1 Houndblaze the whole game. So my board just stayed stacked the entire time, and I had 3 back-to-back-to-back Moria 8 cost turns. And I was at 4 life when he scooped. Like, it was just the most one-sided game you could imagine. Just because he only saw 1 Houndblaze the whole time, so my board just got to live, and I just built and built and built and applied pressure. And that was the 6th round, and I went 6-0. And I'm definitely going to be playing this deck next set because it's just so consistent, so reliable. I think 4 Lucci is definitely the play. I see a lot of people play 3 copies, but I think 4 Lucci, 4 Absalom is just where you want to be because those are your only removal effects, so you really want to see them ASAP. Like, you don't want to whiff that. It's kind of like how you don't want to whiff your stage in Reiju because it just ties the whole deck together. That's how I feel about the 4th Lucci. Other than that, this deck is like, or this list is very like stock, you know? Like I'm not reinventing the wheel with this, that's for sure. I just really like the 4th Lucci, and I think it was a good touch throughout the day. Anyway, that was my first place Moria list. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next video.